This is my 2005 Honda Accord Wagon, and here's why I think it is the perfect JDM wagon to daily drive. My favorite thing about this car is that it's unique while still being compatible. Even here in Canada, where we've been able to import CM2 and CM3 Accord wagons for about 7 years, I still have tons of people ask me what this thing is. This car gets the right kind of attention. It blends in completely with normal traffic to the average person, but for car enthusiasts, they know that this is something different. Personally, I've always wanted a car that was unique, but with uniqueness comes compatibility issues. However, this solves all of that. Under the hood is a K24, and if you know anything about Hondas, you know that the K24 is one of the most legendary engines Honda has ever made. K24s are super reliable engines. They're known to run for over 300,000 kilometers, no problem. When it comes to fuel efficiency, I'm getting 10 liters per 100 kilometer fairly easily, and it may not be the most powerful engine in the world at 160 horsepower, but it is still super fun to drive. And it doesn't just stop with the engine. Tons of parts on this car are shared with North American counterparts. So far, I've only had to replace calipers and rotors and the serpentine belt, but all of those parts have been shared parts with cars that are sold in North America. You'll probably recognize this front end from the North American Acura TSX. The headlights, the grille, the bumper are all exactly the same. Personally, I've always been a huge fan of wagons. I've loved BMW wagons, Mercedes wagons, Subaru wagons, but the thing that all of those have in common is a high cost of ownership, whether it be from the list price or just high maintenance cost. On the other hand, this Honda doesn't cost me any more to own than a normal Acura TSX would. These engines are also super tunable if you want to get a little bit more horsepower out of them. Personally, I'm going to keep mine stock and just drive it for as long as I can. If 160 horsepower just isn't going to cut it for you, you can also get this car in a Type S, which comes with 200 horsepower from the factory. On the topic of modifications, my Accord Wagon is almost completely stock other than RSR lowering springs, a Modulo style front lip, and this debadged all-white aftermarket grille, which I know nothing about because it was installed in Japan. Speaking of things that were installed in Japan, this car even has a card reader, which is completely useless to me here, but if I lived in Japan, I'd be able to super conveniently pay tolls with it. In my opinion, the biggest downside about this car is that as far as I know, it only comes in an automatic. You can fact check me on that in the comments. I know people have manual swapped these, but as far as I know from the factory, you can only buy them auto. Here are 4 rapid fire features that I love. The first feature I love is that it has electronic power steering. This is the first car I've ever driven with electronic power steering, and you can literally drive with one finger. Next up is power folding mirrors, which is maybe not the coolest thing ever by today's standards, but in 2005, power folding mirrors was pretty cool. It also has rain sensing wipers, which again, by today's standards, not the coolest feature ever, but in 2005, I think that's pretty cool. And finally, flat folding rear seats. You can fit like 4 hockey bags in this thing, which is pretty much a necessity in Canada. For my summer wheel and tire setup, I've got Enkai EKM3 wheels, which I found on Facebook Marketplace for about 200 bucks. They were completely destroyed when I got them. The paint was half stripped off, but I got them sandblasted and powder coated for 600 bucks. And 800 bucks all in, I think they look pretty good. Just gotta find some center caps. For tires, I've got Yokohama Avid Ascent GT tires. Nothing too special, but no complaints so far. For my winter setup, I've got Manare Eurospeed wheels wrapped in Maxxis winter tires. Again, nothing too special, but it gets the job done. When it comes to summer and winter wheel and tire setups, the one thing I will say is that I do have a much more aggressive offset on my summer setup than my winter setup, and I find that that works out pretty nicely because it flings way less dirt onto the rear quarter panel of my car. My car in particular is a pretty low level trim, but you can option these cars with a power liftgate, sunroof, heated seats, leather seats, and even roof rails, which to be honest, I really wish I had on mine. If you're in Canada, good news, you can already import one of these 7th gen Honda Accord wagons. However, if you're in the States, you are gonna have to wait until 2027. The first model year of this body style was 2002. When it comes to price, obviously that's gonna depend a lot on how you acquire it. I bought mine here in Canada off Facebook Marketplace for $7,000. It had 70,000 kilometers on it and was honestly a super good deal. If I were you, I'd try to keep an eye on the auctions to find a good deal on one of these, but realistically, no matter where you buy it, it's probably gonna be a better deal than the North American Acura TSX. If you are able to get your hands on one of these cars, there's a few simple modifications that I would recommend to make this car look way better. First of all, I would definitely recommend lowering it. The stock ride height of this car is insane. It looks like a complete monster truck. I would definitely recommend getting lowering springs or coilovers to fix that. If you can find a nice set of wheels, that definitely goes a long way as well. But other than that, I think this car looks super cool from the factory and you really don't need to do too much to it. Overall, I have absolutely loved owning this car for the past year and a half. It's super reliable, super practical. It's good on gas. It may not be the fastest thing in the world, but as a daily driver, I think it's perfect.
カードが挿入